Welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be on Shogun finale, chapter 10, Dream of a Dream. It just aired, and I will be talking about the finale and also talking about just certain things of the series. What a fantastic finale we just were able to witness. If you're going to keep watching this video, there will be spoilers that I'll be talking about here. Last week, I apologize for not having talked more about Shogun, and here I am this week about to dish out some of my thoughts, things that I've kind of taken away from the show, some things that were just beautifully done. There are so many things that were just beautifully done, and I don't know that I'll be able to get through everything in this video, but I will highlight a few things. So, spoilers ahead, guys. Okay, the finale itself was just really, this show was more about characters and the things that they were going through and culture and power struggle than it was about huge epic battles. And honestly, like, it was such a breath of fresh creative air. It was poetic, it was powerful, it was stunning. There were moments between characters that sort of brought a lot of closure. And I would say hands down the best show of 2024. Yeah, most definitely. We come into this episode and it was brilliant. It's like Blackthorne is in his deathbed. When you're at the end of your life, you take stock of what matters most. And I think the way that they opened this was pretty cool. There was a lot of emphasis on wind in this episode, and I'll get into that a little bit more. I wasn't expecting this, but we kind of pick up right where we left off. The blast happened, and that's when everything went to black on the last episode, that penultimate episode that really shattered all of us and made many of us sob. And we come into this episode and we see Blackthorne in the cellar room area where the blast happens and crawls over to where Mariko is. And it was not a scene I was ready for. I'm gonna be real honest. I was not expecting that at all. The way that he groaned, prayed over her. It was just a lot. It was just a lot going on in that scene. And we see Blackthorne sort of in the depths in this episode. He loses Mariko, and in the episode he loses his ship and his consort, Fujisama, and it's just like loss after loss after loss after loss for him. And he kind of, I love his character arc because, obviously he had his own agenda, and it took him losing everything to figure out what really mattered. That is very true of our lives, and it was very true for Blackthorne. And the flashbacks while he's on his deathbed of Mariko, just scenes of Mariko and him, and that's who he's thinking of right before he's about to leave this earth. And so I'm trying to get through this video, but I'm having to pause because, when a character, it's not very often that a character really does a number on you. And I think of episode 4, the concept of the eightfold fence. Mariko is telling the story about the eightfold fence, and it's being an impenetrable wall where you can retreat, a coping mechanism taught to young people in Japan that allows them to retreat emotionally into a walled off area inside themselves. And it's so great because in a lot of ways, this is how Mariko carried herself for, I don't know, 8 episodes. You would see little cracks in that fence, here and there. And then in episode 9, I felt like that eightfold fence just was crumbling, and you could see all the emotion, and it was beautiful. She is sort of like the teacher to Blackthorne about, some of the customs and the thought behind actions. And she continues to resonate in the story, even though she met her demise in episode 9. Every time they mention her name, ugh, I just. And so we see that she made an arrangement with the church to have Blackthorne released in exchange for the destruction of a ship. And we see at the end of the episode that Toranaga was actually the one who arranged all of that. So Blackthorne is just, he's kind of in this place of just having to let go of the war inside him. And he does. And towards the end, there's this really beautiful scene of him and Toranaga. And it was just like this such beautiful closure between these two men. And we see Blackthorne helping Fuji, serving her. She was his consort, so she served him and his household and took care of things for him. And I loved how he helps Fuji kind of let go of her baby's remains, her husband's remains, into the depths of the sea. And I love that. I love that scene so much. There were so many parallels here. And so the way Mariko helps Fuji to push away the pull of death and finding purpose. And we see that in the beginning of the series. And in the final episode, Fuji does the same for Blackthorne by helping him let go of, I would say, a very significant piece of who Mariko was into the depths of the sea. And we see that, and it's such a just beautiful scene. And episode 4, I believe it is, we see Fuji and Blackthorne and Mariko share a scene where they're all sitting together, and in the finale, it's just Fuji and Blackthorne, and Blackthorne just kind of looks to his right, and then he says, "No translator." There's a verbal exchange between Fuji and Blackthorne. She tells him, "Let your hands be the last to hold her," and then he puts the cross in the water. Here's a parallel. You're reminded of the scene where Mariko is telling Fuji, "Let your hands be the last to hold your son." Beautiful parallels here in this episode. Poems was a thing, man. Mariko had she was like queen of words, and in the series, and in episode 9, we see Mariko tell Oshiba, "Flowers are only flowers because they fall." And in the finale, Oshiba finishes the poem by saying, "But thankfully the wind." The writing in the show is just, it's poetic. It's otherworldly deep. I love it because the story, as much as it's showing you things, it's also leaving up for the viewer to interpret. And there are no words to describe how extraordinary this show is. And there were several scenes where the wind was played a part. It just reminded me of the poem. Another thing that we see throughout the series is Yabu has been, wanting to know Toranaga's plan before it happens. And in the final episode, he lets him in on it. And but he doesn't tell him like all of it. Like he's like, what does it mean to tell a dead man the future? And Yabu meets his demise. He commits seppuku, and Toranaga, the brilliance of Toranaga, honestly, like this man played chess and everyone was playing checkers. He seemed to always be 10 steps ahead of everyone. And yeah, so Yabu was a part of that, and he played the part, and he played it well. The guy was just trying to survive. I get it, but he played his part in the plan, and he played the Falcon. Him and Blackthorne, both. I know Toranaga described those two men as falcons, and we see the scene where Toranaga lets go of the falcon and releases the falcon and wishes it to bear many daughters. And it's just too good of a show, guys. I can't. I loved what he said about Mariko and how she played such an integral part in the plan. In his exchange with Yabu, he tells him the plan, where he was going with everything, and he says, Yabu's like, well, how about Crimson Sky? And Toranaga just kind of looks at him and basically is just like, "I thought you would know by now, but here, let me just spell it out for you. It already happened. I sent a woman to do what an army never could." I was not ready to hear that. But that's our girl. She did that. And honestly, guys, I'm still torn to pieces over this character, Mariko, that I had to write music. You're hearing it in the background. That's the piece of music I wrote for her in honor of her and in honor of just the brilliance of her writing and her character and what she did in history and how she was really the MVP of this whole series. So yeah, it's a sad day for me to see the show be done. It's a show that's made me see things a little differently. There was no epic battles. It was a beautiful ending to a very epic story. Toranaga, along with Blackthorne and Mariko, and yes, Yabu, really just all these players played a part in ushering in an era of peace, an era where there is no war. That was his dream, the dream of a dream. I don't know if you remember, but the first episode, there was a monologue. I know who did it. I just forget the character's name, but he talks about there being three hearts. The first heart, the outer layer, is the one that you let everyone in on. And then there's a second layer. It's the one that you let your close friends in on, that part of your heart. And then there's the one that you keep to yourself. Toranaga kept his desire to be shogun to himself. It just, I'm telling you, man, this story is better than any. I grew up in the church, and this story is better than any sermon I've ever heard in my entire life. It's better than any speech. It's just really, really good and really, really deep. I love that you have to put your phone down and pay attention, understand what's going on, to take a moment, an hour, to do that and to really get into the depths of this story and the culture, the Japanese culture, and it's worth it. Until next time. You can watch Shogun on Hulu. All 10 episodes are available now for streaming. Talk to you later.